10 years ago, the book Extreme Ownership: How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin was released for the first time. These retired Navy SEAL officers who served in Ramadi, Iraq, and had seen some of the toughest urban combat in the history of the SEAL teams, came together to share with civilians the principles they learned as SEAL team leaders. It became a cultural phenomenon that has guided and helped individuals become the leaders our communities, companies, and families so desperately need. Extreme Ownership is organized into 3 parts. The first part develops the fundamentals and mindset necessary to lead and win. Part 2 covers the 4 critical concepts that enable a team to perform at the highest level. And the final part discusses the difficult balance that leaders must navigate in order to maintain the team perpetually operating at such high levels. Each chapter focuses on a different leadership concept. You study these concepts through lessons learned in U.S. Navy SEAL combat training. You pick up leadership principles and how to apply them in the business world based on work that Mr. Willink and Mr. Babin have done with companies in a broad range of industries. Whether you are a member of the military, a CEO, a teacher, or a single mother, the principles in this book can be relied on to awaken the leader in you and lead your company, party, unit, family, your team to victory. I'm very proud to have with me one of the authors of Extreme Ownership to discuss the book's anniversary and impact, Jocko Willink. Mr. Willink, thank you so much for your service, and I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you on such an important topic.
Thanks for having me. It was an honor to be able to serve, and thanks for bringing me here today.
We're so happy to have you. So, 10 years ago, you decided to write Extreme Ownership. What inspired you to want to share what you learned as a Navy SEAL and to impart that wisdom for use in business?
Well, when I retired from the SEAL teams, I started working with civilian companies and teaching them the principles that we had learned in combat. And it was very quick that I realized that the leadership principles that we learned on the battlefield applied to any leadership endeavor. And so as we worked with more companies, the demand signal to write this stuff down in a format that they could refer back to got higher and higher. So eventually we wrote it down, and that ended up being this book, Extreme Ownership.
Okay. So what has been your reaction to the popularity of the book and the impact that it's had and continues to have 10 years later? And do you feel that you have accomplished your mission that you set out to do with this book?
So it was definitely surprising. I don't think anyone expects anything that they do to be so well received by people. And it's fundamentally an idea. The fundamental idea of extreme ownership is something that we all got taught in 2nd or 3rd grade. Hey, you got to take responsibility for your actions. So it was pretty surprising and yet awesome that there was such a high demand signal for it and that people really embraced it. As far as have we accomplished the mission yet? I would say no. There's still people that have never heard of these principles before. There's still people that can use these and utilize them. And as you mentioned in your opening there, it's not only good for the military, it's not only good for business, but it's good for your family and it's good for your life as well. So we will keep teaching these principles as long as I'm around, I can tell you that.
Oh, I'm so glad. So the first principle that you mentioned in the book is that the leader must own everything that happens with their team, especially the mistakes and failures, while also passing along any credit for successes to your subordinate team members. So how does one reconcile these principles while maintaining ambition and the need for recognition?
Listen, when you're in charge of a team, you're gonna get that recognition, whether you ask for it or not. And as a matter of fact, when you raise your hand and you say, hey, everyone, look at me, please tell me I did a good job, that respect and recognition actually goes down. It's much better when something goes well to point at the team and say they did it, which they did, and you continue to try and figure out what you're going to do next, figure out what the next mission is, and figure out how you can improve. So whenever you focus on yourself, whenever you look for accolades, it doesn't work out well in the end. And that is usually our ego. In fact, not even usually. It's our ego that wants to be patted on the back. It's our ego that wants to prance around with a trophy in our hand. That's just ego. You got to put your ego in check. You got to subdue your ego and give the credit to the team.
So we just touched on this, but do you think these principles can be used for one's personal growth? Is there such a thing as a team of one?
Well, of course, there is a team of one. You're responsible for what happens in your life. And if you don't take ownership of what's going on in your life, you're going to run into problems. And you can see this is an attitude where if people don't get promoted at work, they blame everyone else, or maybe their health is failing because they haven't been exercising and they've been eating poorly. They can blame that on food companies. They can blame that on other external factors. But the fact of the matter is, in life, we have to take ownership of where we're at. And listen, do you get hit sometimes? Do we get hit sometimes with things that are absolutely beyond our control? Yes, that does happen in life. Whether that's some kind of illness that we have absolutely no control over. Sometimes an accident happens that you have no control over. And then what we have to do in those situations is take ownership of how we respond. What are we going to do? Are we going to curl up into a ball and hide on the couch or in bed? Or are we going to get up and take action and move forward?
Yeah. Now, you've written several books besides extreme ownership, such as Discipline Equals Freedom and Way of the Warrior Kid. You have companies like Echelon Front and Jocko Fuel, and you host the Jocko podcast. You've had success in the military and in civilian life. So what could possibly be next for you?
Well, I've always got things going on. We've got a company called Origin USA where we make clothes 100% in America, and we make them all out of American-made materials. So that's originusa.com, and you already mentioned jockofuel.com, and you also mentioned my kids' book, and very fortunately been blessed that kids' book is being made into a movie. So we filmed a movie this past fall. It is going to be a feature film. It's put together by Skydance and Apple, and it's starring a guy named Chris Pratt, if you've ever heard of him.
Yes. Oh, I'm excited for that. So before I let you go, I just want to, again, thank you for your service and for the positive influence that you've had on me and many others who have been impacted by your work. And I want to encourage anyone else who hopes to bring positivity into the world to read Extreme Ownership. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too.